Do you like David Cameron?
No.
He really is rubbish.
Ah! God. Another weird, trippy, pointless nightmare dream sequence. I wonder why these keep happening to me. Oh yeah, right, because I fell down the Leto hole. So, last time we took a look at I Am Caligula, the first of 2 Caligula-themed games brought to us by Seraphim Productions. This time we'll be looking at the visual novel companion piece, Drusilla's Dreams. Which makes even less sense narratively, but it does at least show us a bit of the behind the scenes, which surprisingly explains a lot. Right, so this is a straight up visual novel with less gameplay elements in it than I Am Caligula. Other than the fact that this has little variation as to what appears on screen, which unfortunately means that we have to stare at images for minutes at a time, I don't really know what else I can say about it mechanically speaking. I mean, I'm not really a visual novel guy. As a game, it's really difficult to review it on any merit but its narrative, because, well, that's all this game has to offer. I don't mind, it saves me a job of having to talk about anything but the narrative and the artwork. Speaking of the artwork, it's almost the exact same thing. I don't really mind that, I mean, I was fine with it in the last game. Kinda reminded me of Fairy Tales, where I would say that the art is somewhat decent for a budget game. There's some controversy about the art in this one though, where Leto has seemingly traced over some old images. Now, some of these images, it's not really that big of a deal. For example, this battle back for RPG Maker, it's actually in the files of the last game that he made, and you are kind of able to do whatever you want with them. The license is... I mean, it's not public domain, but it's almost there. However, seemingly a few of these backdrops were taken from elsewhere, and I'm concerned that these might be copyrighted images, repurposed. I'll give Leto the benefit of the doubt, and assume that they are royalty-free, not to mention either that a few of these can come across as a bit of a stretch as far as comparisons go. Right, now for the narrative. So, this is an even bigger mess than I Am Caligula. At least with that game, the setting was decently established, but with this one, I have no fucking clue what's going on. I can't tell if this takes place alongside it, if it's an alternate reality, if it's some sort of dream world as the title implies. I don't have a fucking clue what the shit any of it is. It also doesn't help that certain dialogue choices alter the fabric of space and time. So, if you choose not to have a bath, Caligula suddenly exists. Or he doesn't. Don't worry, it makes just as much sense if you play it. The dialogue is just drivel for the most part. It's just going around in circles and characters seemingly just being whatever they need to be for the scene to work around them. It's a fucking chore to sift through, and it's not rewarding in the slightest. I tell you what happens, but I need something to happen to tell you what happens. Anyway, the only scene of note in this entire thing is the very last scene of the sad ending where things start to make a bit more sense. Basically, you choose to treat Luca as a slave, which is fine by me because she's a thoughtless bitch, but this means that you're super mean to her and shit. Anyway, you notice that this weird music with lyrics comes on? It sounds like something from the soundtrack of that Bible game on the PS2. And just, what the fuck? What the fuck is the background music? the critics, Drusilla, they said they hated the old music, and they are supposed to like this. Well, it does have a catchy tune, and it was free. What about fixing the screen resolution? What the fuck, later? So the players can see my beautiful body better? I think the developer said to eat shit. It's at this point that you begin to see what Leto is. Leto is Caligula. Possibly a reincarnation of the man, or some strange shit beyond that, because this man's behaviour is not normal. I don't have to look at his Twitter to see this. Just look at his Gama Sutra blogs where he pronounces that he is victorious over the AAA gaming industry, and how his games are a unique statement. Here he says that the purpose of these games was to honour the memory of the Emperor Caligula? Are you out of your fucking mind? From your own portrayal of this man, he's a monster. Why the fuck would you honour his memory unless you got a real screw loose? It's then you realise who this man is, or at the very least who he can be compared to. I consider him to be the real life version of Franz Liebekind from the Mel Brooks comedy The Producers. An insane fellow who worships Adolf Hitler to the point that he basically lives as a Nazi and wishes for his story about the romantic exploits of his beloved Führer to be told through the medium of, well, play. Replace the Hitler stuff with Caligula, and you can kinda see some comparisons between him and our dear friend Leto. Leto has a history of being called hostile towards critics of his work, and game critics in general who don't look at his shit games. Gee, I wonder why. Leto is a dense man who argues pedantically as fuck when confronted with any criticism, but isn't willing to put the work in to fix his games. When he does patch his games, he is sure to make a note that this is a free update, as if he's giving us a truly wonderful gift that we should cherish. This man has a weird narcissistic complex where he believes that we should be grateful to him for fixing his blatant fuck-ups. Leto, mate, I would never lambast anyone for having bugs in their game, or fixing those bugs. I find it legitimately admirable in this day and age of lazy hack Steam devs to go through old projects and fix them when needed. However, I have to say that you do not deserve praise for fixing your fuck-ups. You do not deserve worship for adding a ghastly looking horse to a game post-launch when it probably should have been there before the game launched. Leto has a reputation for scamming, toxic behaviour, and even line-crossing personal attacks on people. For example, I Am Caligula was originally advertised as the game that became Drusilla's Dreams, and from what I understand, it was never made clear that Drusilla's Dreams was ever going to become I Am Caligula, or vice versa. He also needed a Kickstarter to make I Am Caligula and Drusilla's Dreams, two games made on RPG making and visual novel making softwares that are either free or require a payment of less than £100. Let me make it clear that I do not believe you would need a Kickstarter to make a game like I Am Caligula, especially when the vast majority of its assets are from RPG Maker itself. There's one or two slightly customized assets to give it its Roman theme, but aside from that, nope, nada, fuck all. Leto has also seemingly hired an artist to draw his characters. Now I imagine that this is the most expensive thing that he did here. I personally paid Hot Frog Animations around £90 for about 15 seconds of animation. I also have a friend who got a portrait painted by an artist, who she compensated her for around $30, although she did say she would have paid $60 if the artist would have let her. Now, I know that there are variables between artists and art and detail and shit like that. And it doesn't necessarily mean that Leto paid the same for what he basically got in I Am Caligula, but it does give you some idea as to what this shit costs, and how something as simple as this, you could probably pay for it with your own wages. I'm hoping that Leto didn't ask for much on his Kickstarter. If I was being super generous, I'd assume a project like this would cost £500 at the very most. I should know because I've made several projects on par with it without spending a penny. Leto has also been sending a lot of shit to the likes of Jim Sterling and Total Biscuit, lambasting them with vitriol over him not getting enough attention when his crap game came out. You know, the crap game that didn't even get any fixes for its bugs and spelling errors. But they did manage to find the time to make a scene worse. One of his constant complaints was that Jim's Greenlight Trailers series has promoted only bad games. Never mind his Greenlight Good Stuff series that promoted especially good games like Shots Fired, or the fact that he actually trashed most of the bad games submitted to Steam Greenlight and never condoned anyone upvoting them. People will do what they do. When a reviewer tells me not to buy a game, I buy it to see for myself. Hell, by your own logic, he's made you very famous and successful by trashing you in a video and refusing to even showcase you. You got the gold star promotional material there. Also, what the hell do you even care? You made the same game using the same assets multiple times. I found Leto pricing things differently depending on what site he's using. Someone suggested that he tried to circumvent the Steam refund system and seems to accuse his critics of being Romine brothers from Digital Homicide. I have no fucking clue. Looking at this man's deteriorating behaviour over the course of a year or two, his worship of a monster, him basically trying to channel the spirit of that monster, is it any wonder why I gave up talking about his shit game? This toxic little man has basically made a vehicle for his own ego, a low quality vehicle that we're apparently supposed to praise him for. Well, Leto, nobody is praising you for this mess. There's a black cat staring at me. Hello. Oh, I didn't give a shit. Okay, you fucked up. Right. So to conclude, Drusilla's dreams and I Am Caligula are colossal wastes of fucking time. Pretty sure you're glad that I was here to tell you that. Now, if you'll excuse me, I've got a phone call to make. Hi, is that Tesco? Hey, yeah, I've got some meat. I was wondering if you'd be interested in buying it. About 10 stones worth. I have in this world. I want you to see me now and know you are my slave now. Wait, is Luca like a child?
Welche neugierige Papprüchen.